So, this is gonna be a big video. We all know Pixar. They were the most well-liked animation company until 2011, in which basically no one has cut them since. Now, this video originally started off as me wanting to rank specific elements of Pixar movies, which was going to lead into a series where I do them with other animation studios. I cancelled that idea because, to be honest, I just wanted to talk about the movies themselves first, share my opinion on them. And yeah, while a lot of people have already done Pixar rankings, and I don't usually like to do generic ideas which everyone else has done. I mean, the only times I've really done that so far are Frozen and the Lorax, and those movies were both I just found them interesting topics. But this, I do think I have some very unique opinions on these movies now looking at it. Looking at my final ranking. I think that you're gonna be surprised by what I think, and that it'll be different. It will be quite a different list. Or at least, I hope it will be, because I don't want to just parrot other people's opinions, which is definitely what I would do if I was making this when I was 14. I think I might have actually made this when I was 14. I don't know. But, even though I hadn't seen all the movies. I don't know. So, let's just see. Where does everything land? Number 28. No, it's not Cars 2. Wow, I wasn't kidding when I said I had unique opinions, was I? The Good Dinosaur is one of the most boring and uneventful movies I've ever seen. I think it opens okay. Arlo and his family are originally well characterized and established well, but none of that matters in the end, as it barely factors into anything. This movie barely has a story. It's about a dino and his dog walking for a while. Sure, Arlo wants to get home, but you need more conflict than that. If the movie is just about getting home, unless you've got interesting characters, it's going to turn out pretty dull. Imagine The Wizard of Oz. There's no witch, and the other characters disappear after one or two scenes. Yep, that's this movie. It could really use a villain to speed things up. Okay, there is a villain, but he's only in 2 scenes, and he just eats other dinosaurs because the storm wants him to. What? Him randomly coming back was super forced. I guess they wanted a climax, so they just brought back the most villainous guy from before. Completely unimportant. A plot with very little conflict could work if they have really good characters, but this movie just doesn't. Arlo's okay. I like him at first, but then he becomes inconsistently characterized. He hates this dog boy for killing his father, but then suddenly he doesn't when he kills a snake for him and gets some berries. It is forced and not well developed at all. And for a studio which is really good best friend bonds, this is just a disappointment. Like, we're supposed to buy Arlo cares about him at the end, but we've seen nothing even indicating that any time before. I felt no emotions while watching this movie. If you like it, more power to you, but to me, it's one of the dullest experiences I've ever had to sit through. Number 27. I did not have good expectations for Cars 2. I mean, who would, considering its reputation? But I was willing to give it a chance. After all, this movie does have its fans. Also, my history with the film is strange. Now, imagine you're a kid, about 11 to 12 years old. You watch a lot of YouTubers talk about animated movies you like. And as you get used to them, you watch even videos about stuff you haven't seen. Especially the negative videos, as you love watching them rage. So in a few years, a movie in which you've seen about 10 rants on, when you think back, you might say, yeah, I've seen this movie, even though you never did. But you knew it anyway, off so many reviews. Yeah, that was my experience with Cars 2. Luckily, while I dislike this movie for some of the reasons everyone else does, I have a lot more to say than that, and some of the stuff I think are redeeming qualities about this movie will probably shock you. But, of course, let's start with the bad stuff. This is Finn McMissile. He is an idiot. He is a really big idiot. He thinks Nate is a spy, and a really good one at that. Why? Well, he's American, and had a tracking beacon on him, which looked like the spy. But it's obvious in the way he acts that they made a mistake, and he's not a spy, especially when Mater keeps telling them that. Like, he keeps complimenting how good Mater is as a spy because of this misunderstanding, and we're supposed to believe Mater's the dumb one? He also treats Holly like crap. I mean, this is a super important mission. Why did they only send you and someone who isn't even really a field agent? Is Cars Spy World just ran terribly? Boy, this movie's dumb. And Lightning? Okay, so I'll talk about this later, obviously, but Lightning's arc in the first movie is okay. Definitely one of the weaker arcs. But it's like he's learned nothing. He's so competitive with beating the Italian car the entire time, and when he doesn't, he snaps at Mater for stopping him from winning the race. Did he just forget? Did they just forget what Cars 1 was actually about? It was about Lightning learning that winning the race doesn't actually matter that much. Why does he suddenly care now? You know, Pixar, you've made other sequels in which the character development sticks. Why not this time? It's cleared up after one fucking conversation. What was even the point? For Mater to leave? It didn't have to be this contrived. It is also worth mentioning how dumb and nonsensical the ending is. And no, it isn't this incredibly stupid twist villain thing. Oh, that's dumb too. But everyone's already said why it's dumb, so I won't go into that. But why does Mater reject becoming a spy? Like, for the entire movie, from the start. I thought that this was how the movie ends. Mater proves himself. They decide to train him up as a spy after how much he helped, but suddenly he wants to stay in Radiator Springs instead. You know, they act like it's one or the other, and I guess they will be going around the world. But Lightning didn't quit racing after the first movie, did he? He just stayed in Radiator Springs, as well as racing. Why couldn't Mater do the same thing but with spy work? Actually, the ending with lightning would have made even more sense. It's a boring ending which makes the entire movie just feel pointless. Okay, enough about why this movie is bad. I'll now explain some stuff I like. The first one will shock you. Mater. Yeah, I know. Let me explain. Mater is actually a good protagonist in this movie. I don't really think it's the reasons they want me to like about him. He's not that funny and his relationship with Lightning sucks, but I still think he's very likable. I feel sorry for the way the world treats him. He's not annoying in this movie, at least not to me. And if you saw my Ice Age video, you know I'm definitely not averse to finding characters annoying. But honestly, I'd argue Mate is a better protagonist in this movie than Lightning McQueen was in the first one. Yeah, I said it. I like the arc he goes through too. Him and Harley are a much more well-developed romance than Lightning and Sally, and I kinda ship them. Sue me! There is much more to say about this movie, but it's going to get its own video soon. Actually, yeah, it's very interesting to talk about. Anyway, let's get on with the rest of the list. Number 26. Lightyear! Isn't actually that bad. I mean, it's certainly not good, but I don't think it's the worst movie ever, and it's far above the last two movies we've talked about. I think it has some good points. The beginning is most part good. I buy Buzz's friendship with that girl whose name I can't remember, and I liked how the mission requires time dilation. I like tropes like that. It's a good opening, even if they keep cramming in the opening with quotes from other movies. We get it, this is the Buzz movie. Most of the quotes are stuff that Toy said, not Buzz himself. They seem more just like hints to the audience than something that would actually be in a movie. And it's just so obnoxious. Another good thing about the movie is Socks. He's great throughout the entire thing. Not much more to say. Actually, I like how feature Socks is the reason Buzz gets out. Fun. As soon as Buzz gets to the future though, this movie is just boring. The convict and stupid guy are annoying, Izzy is dull, and Buzz is unlikable the way he treats them and how he is so focused on the mission. Considering this ending, this might have been the point, but it doesn't exactly work because, well, spoilers if you care. Evil Buzz's plan makes no sense. He wants to go back in time to find a crystal to go further back in time to prevent him from screwing up. Okay, so why doesn't he just like Star Command to get back? Okay, I guess Star Command turned against him, but he should have at least investigated this. How did he know his past self would be there? When did he create this robot thing of this giant ship? These questions of a reason are one of the reasons this twist is so dumb. But the biggest problem with this movie is one I don't really see many people bringing up. This movie does not fit up with Buzz's established backstory. Zurg isn't his arch enemy. He's one unimportant guy he fought once who turned out to be himself. He's not an emperor. He's not even really evil. And they're not... And Star Command isn't focused on protecting the galaxy from him. I mean, when in the timeline is Buzz supposed to land in Andy's room? Is it before the movie? That doesn't make sense. He wouldn't know who Zurg was. Was it at the end of the movie? That doesn't make sense because Zurg is not only dead, but he knows he's himself. Also, the Toy Story movies imply that Buzz, before he came to Andy's room, works alone. I mean, he's not looking for any of his partners or anything. And this doesn't fit in with either option. The thing I hate the most, though, is the addition of Buzz talking to himself and recording things to himself. If this was just something Buzz does, why wasn't he doing it in the first movie? He thought he was speaking to Star Command every time he did this. This narrating to himself totally ruins the immersion of those scenes. I would have liked if they differentiated Buzz from Toy Story and Buzz from this movie more, but they don't seem to care. So yeah, overall, I don't think this movie is the worst thing in the world, but I wouldn't watch it again. Well, unless I was doing a big video on all the Toy Story movies. Oh my god, I'm actually planning to then, aren't I? Well, I guess I'll just wait till 2026, I guess. Number 25. I do not like Finding Dory. It's a somewhat well-liked sequel, but I honestly do not get it. I'm not sure I ever liked it. I think it started off mostly well. I like seeing these characters again, with Marlin, Dory and Nemo interacting, and Dory remembering and searching for her parents. And then of course the introduction of Hank was very good. Actually, he stays that way throughout the entire movie. He's great. But the movie gets worse and worse as it goes on. We go from place to place with Dory finding her parents, and yes, this was the structure of the first movie. That worked because everywhere they went was funny or said the story in some way. Obviously with the part with the whales isn't integral to the story, but they're not really enjoyable, and the part with kids isn't enticing either. Actually, a lot of this movie was kinda boring. One of the strengths of the first film was the cut between the main plot of Marlin and Dory finding Nemo and the scenes of Nemo in the tank being lost. Both complement the story, both are crucial to understanding the characters. We don't get that here. There's like 3 scenes of Marlin and Nemo finding Dory, which is supposed to be the plot of the movie, but no, the movie's just about Dory finding her parents. The Finding Dory part is a subplot at best. Nemo gets like 10 lines the entire movie. Marlin is mostly doing the same thing Lightning was in Cars 2, although not even near as bad as that example. But still. But honestly, most of the movie isn't bad, just a little dull and average. Until we get to the ending. Oh my god, the ending. What the hell is going on? So, Dory falls while Marlin and Nemo are still in the van, but then finds her parents and then remembers that Marlin and Nemo are still in the van, so has to go and get them, and then her whale friends easily get into the ocean. As it was that easy, so what it is as if it was that easy. Why would it be this easy to this aquarium fit? Excuse me if I get this wrong. This Marine Institute sounds terrible if the ocean is this close. But so one of them uses the echolocation to find the van, and then they stop it. by blocking the road with a bunch of otters. Okay, what? And this plan actually works? Okay, I mean, otters are cute, yes. You will block the road anyway with this. So, movie over then, right? Nope. Dory then snaps at Hank, saying he is not going back to the ocean with her. Says that he is going back to the ocean with her. Which Dory... No. Sometimes introverts just want to be introverts. But then they just take control of the van, and the octopus starts driving the van. And not horribly either. Like, how does it make sense? When has Hank had any time to be in a car? And then he drives it into the ocean, freeing all the fish. Hang on, what? Is this movie about freeing fish? And how we mistreat them in an aquarium? All fish should be set free or something? I guess, but what was I actually watching? If it's subtext, it's sort of subtext. This is just seems like a random out of nowhere ending. You can cut it where Dory finds her parents, just send Marlon and Nemo with her too. Maybe you want to give Hank some resolution, but I don't know, just do something. This ending might be worse than the ending of Cars 2. And honestly, I was thinking of ranking it above this, but Cars 2 is definitely worse. But this movie is not much better. Improve and make better sequels, Pixar. Number 24. So, I was originally going to a whole video on Brave as a sort of prequel to this marathon. Why didn't I do that? Well, I decided the order of the movies by a wheel of names. And by complete coincidence, this was the last original movie it landed on. So by the time I got to it, I had already finished most of the script and the ranking, so I didn't see the point. I could have obviously ignored the wheel at any time, but that would have thrown it off track, and I wanted to stay at least a little consistent. I wanted to see what this movie was in hindsight, like I did with the Borat. I might still make that video, but stuff like Cars 2 seem much more interesting as movies. So I'll do Cars 2 first, as well as a few positive reviews later on the list. I mean, Brave isn't really a boring movie. At least that's not what I would call it. I'll talk about the two main issues people see in the movie. Merida is an unlikable protagonist, yes, but it's not like anyone else in the movie is any better. You can feel for her at the beginning with how awful her mum treats her, even though they kind of make her mother unrealistically evil. Something people say about turning red, and maybe they're right, which shines a lot here for some reason. The dad is nothing either, and is just a typical dumb dad. I've recorded a short about Elemental doing the unique thing, having two parents that do something, but, well, there's an argument this movie does too, but Elemental does it in a much better way in my opinion. Merida and her mum are also supposed to have development and grow and care about each other, but that never happens. There's no transition in Eleanor wanting to suddenly break tradition other than, what, a few hours of finding fish with Merida? Also, why did Fergus not look for Eleanor and Merida? They were gone for at least a day. Surely he must have realised, unless an awful father and husband. I think this makes him look worse than he should. The other main criticism is that the movie is unoriginal. I don't fully get this. Maybe it's just because I haven't seen The Bear, but I don't think this is similar to many of the Disney movies. Okay, maybe at the beginning, Merida trying to make her own love for herself is a little similar to Jasmine, and you could make comparison between Ariel having a bad relationship with her father, but these are both very common tropes in these kind of movies, and they're used in quite different ways here. Maybe when I see Brother Bear I'll be more critical, but I don't know, I've never really got this criticism. I'm not 100% sure if I would call this a bad movie like everyone else. A lot of elements are overhated, and I think this movie is overshadowed by others. It's really not the worst Pixar movie ever made, despite what people say. But I still don't think it's very good. I'll just say right now that I prefer the Awat version. Number 23. Since it came out, Elemental has a mixed reception. A divisive movie. It's kind of gone better over time, but for me, I'm not the biggest fan. Don't get me wrong, I'm not sure I would say it's a very bad movie, but it's just not a very good one. It's very muddled, as they're trying to pull up a fire as being discriminated against when they are the ones distrustful. I thought this was going to be a Romeo and Juliet story, but I can't really call it that when the entirety of Wade's family is immediately accepting of Ember. Well, hell, the only character who's really against the relationship is her dad. And yes, I think that Ember's relationship with her dad might be the best part of the movie. It just doesn't work with what they're going for. Romance in this movie is extremely forced, with the movie all apparently happening in the span of a couple of weeks. Like, how did that entire montage happen in a few days? The length of time should have been extended, and then maybe the movie would have been more believable. But it isn't. Ember and Wade don't really have that much chemistry, and Wade is pretty annoying anyway, with the constant crying being an easy source of jokes. But it just gets so annoying. The fact it was the solution to the fake out death was super dumb. Ember though, I think I like. I don't know, she's voiced well, she's likeable and interesting enough. Ellie in the movie, there's not really that much that implies she doesn't want the show. To the point where I was actually surprised when I saw that was where the plot was going. I mean, it's good to subvert expectations sometimes, but here I feel like that wasn't meant to be the case. It's not like it doesn't work as well. Honestly, if this movie was about Emma feeling alone and uncomfortable with her life, and the romance wasn't really there, I think it could have been much better. Because I'm not sure how good the movie does balancing those two plots. Her and it keeps switching between them in ways which are kind of unnatural, and it doesn't really feel like they have much to do with each other. And I think it could have been really good, something special. But the world building didn't really care about that, but it's a little broken too. But won't go over it though. Honestly, in a few years, I might be able to cover it for a certain series, because all of this just screams forgotten film. If you like it, that's completely fine. For me, it kinda just goes nowhere. Number 22. People say Cars 3 is the best Cars, but after watching it, I'd say no, it's not. I think it's close, but I'd say the first edges it out at least a little bit. Don't get me wrong, I get why some think it's the best one, but I don't know, to me, I think it has quite a few issues. For one, Jackson Storm is absolutely nothing as a villain, and neither is that CEO. I hate how the movie gets resolved by another billionaire buying the thing, as if that's going to solve anything. That's like if Jeff Bezos buys Twitter and we pretend it's a better option. No! I like the premise of the movie. The opening is really good, showing new cars with new speed levels getting into the way, and all the older cars being replaced. And yes, it is really stupid that Lightning still looks the exact same as he did in the first movie, but I think they did enough of the job here for it to work. They made the rookies clearly get new fuel so Lightning would fail to adapt to the new practices, instead of him getting actually tired. Another thing I liked was Chick Hicks' talk show. That was a fun callback. Although, why does Lightning even want a bit of that? One thing that, overall, the main thing that drags the movie down is Cruz. She is so obnoxious for nearly the entire movie, and I do not care about her at all. While I kind of like Lightning's arc, I wish they didn't use such an annoying character to do it with. Her bond with Lightning is played okay, but seriously, all the tests and the Demolition Derby scene are terrible. What the hell is the point? Not a bad movie, but not a great one either. Number 21. Despite what everyone says, Cars is not a bad movie. Obviously that's subjective, but am I a fan of this movie? I don't know. I love this movie as a kid. Now I think it's just okay. Like, every element was okay. When I was a kid, I thought Mater was funny, that Lightning McQueen had good character development, and the romantic subplot between him and Sally was good. Now I have different opinions on all three. I don't find Mater annoying. I think Mater is as funny as Sid in all but one canon Ice Age movie. He's not really that funny, but he doesn't really do anything too annoying either. I actually don't mind his friendship with Lightning either. Makes enough sense to me. As for Lightning's character development, it's not bad, but I don't think it's that good either. So, basically like the movie. So he acts like one of the biggest asshole protagonists of the Pixar canon for half the movie, and then in the other half he just turns out good. Like, his friendship with Mater is more well developed, but his good deeds at the end seem to be more about proving Doc wrong and gaining Sally's affection, rather than him actually coming round to liking the town. Selfish intentions and all that. It doesn't come off as that much character development. It's still not the worst character development out there, but compared to other examples of this by Pixar, this is leagues below. And Lightning and Sally's romance? Give me a break. It's obvious that Lightning fell for her from the start, but Sally hates him for most of the movie, and she changes her mind after she overhears him say he has a crush on her. Who does that? Is it implying she liked him back all along? Because there was nothing indicating that. The romance itself doesn't even mean much. She just tells him about the town, then he helps the town, and then they're in love. I like Sally as a character, I guess. This is just too much. So why is this movie not bad? Well, Doc Hudson. He's a great character, he's got a great backstory, and he's got great development in his relationship with Lightning. His entire backstory is understandable yet sad. It's heartwarming when he's brought back and everyone loves him again. It's an interesting resolution. The backstory of the town is a good reveal as well, and honestly, I really do love the ending and the race. Honestly, there's a lot to talk about with this movie. I might make a separate video. It's definitely never boring to me, just interestingly average. Number 20. Toy Story 4 is without a doubt the most divisive Pixar movie. Hell, it might be one of the most divisive animated movies of all time. This is one particular movie which you either think it's a necessary sequel which builds on the foundation of the first three films to create a heartwarming story with a great ending to Woody's arc of the series as a whole, or you think it's a cheap, unnecessary cash grab which not only ruins the ending of the third movie but the entire series in general, as it assassinates Woody's character. Both sides are incredibly annoying, as this movie has been going on 5 years and no side has came close to winning. Some people on the latter side say it's one of the worst animated movies of all time, which is honestly one of the dumbest things I've ever heard. No offense if you think this, but it's just that's just baffling to me that some people think this. Now, if you argue it's one of the worst sequels, then I get it. I get why this movie is so hated by some. Well, what's my opinion? That's what you clicked on this video to find out. Oh, I think it's for the most part pretty good. But it's not great. He has a lot of issues holding it back. I also do not think it's a good sequel to the Toy Story franchise for reasons I'll go into. First, Forky. He's great. He's not in the movie as much as I thought he would be, but he's still a decent character and I think he holds the movie well. I like just about all the new characters. Giggle and Juke Kaboom are really great. And Gabby Gabby, I think she's an underrated villain. Well, technically she's not a villain, but a Twinkle Good, which is a very rarely used trope. But I think it works really well here. She is basically a mixture of the two main toy villains we've seen before, but with the opposite of our ideology of them. The Prospector was left on a shelf for years with no one buying him, which makes him bitter and angry. And Lotso took over a place with toys in and got lots of power due to the same kind of anger. Both their ideologies were the same, that toys are worthless, kids are horrible, and they should find a way to last without toys being loyal. Gabby Gabby holds the opposite ideology, and one she shares with Woody. Problem is, she doesn't channel it in the right way. She's the most neglected of any toy in the series. It's really interesting. Overall, I like the ending, but he hasn't completely changed his outlook. He still thinks being there for a kid is a very important thing. He's going to help more toys get owners, I feel like. But Bonnie will be fine without him. She doesn't need every toy. I feel like it works here. Although, I feel like Bonnie not liking Woody wasn't really set up that much. Yeah, I think while it works for Woody's character, they should have had more than one scene of Woody barely being played with. Shown in the opening montage, him being left aside a couple of times. Otherwise, it doesn't feel entirely fresh. I think that could work. So why don't I think this movie is great? Well, for one, Buzz is way too stupid in this movie. The inner voice thing is so dumb and gets incredibly grating. The side characters as a whole don't do much either. They only really do something at the end. I also really don't like Bo Peep here. She's a total asshole to Woody, and I don't feel like they set up her becoming affectionate enough. It's for these reasons why I'm not sure this is a good Toy Story movie. Yes, it expands the universe and builds off themes of the first three, but doesn't do much for the characters. It's a good ending for Woody, but not necessarily the series. For that reason, I'm not completely against the Toy Story 5. I think it could work well if they do it right and do this movie service. Number 19. So, onward with the list then. What's the next movie to talk about? Ben. Oh, okay. This movie is honestly pretty good. Until the climax, which kind of sucks. Like, I was wondering why this movie was divisive, other than, of course, having Chris Pratt there. But, I don't know, I kind of liked his performance in the movie. Molly's pretty funny. Ian's quite likable too. Good protagonist. It's nice to know he feels a lot like Tom Holland's other character. The journey is very enjoyable and fun. I love the scene with the invisible bridge. I like the world building of this movie. Some very specific spells are some good stuff. I thought that being a pair of pants type movie would be kind of glaring, but honestly it was fine. So do I like the core relationship of this movie? Well, yes and no. I like the rapport between the two on the main journey. The relationship as a whole, I'm not sure how built up it is. Apparently Barley was supposed to look out for Ian, but I'm not really sure how much of that we saw. Third act breakup was really dumb. I don't fully know what triggered it. Like, they were getting along and Barley didn't do anything in particular to break their trust. It would make more sense if they figured that the gem was out there together. Seems that they were looking for a way to kick off the climax, when the climax itself wasn't that good anyway. The curse thing just seemed like this movie wanted some extra conflict. The dragon is weird and is just putting this movie out. I don't fully see what this movie's message is. I mean, I like Barley saying goodbye to their dad, but Ian's sacrifice was just not it. Maybe my opinion will change with a rewatch, who knows. I could do a WD no on it, although I might already be able to tell why without doing all the research for movies I usually cover in that series. There's other stuff in here that don't work, like all the subplots. The first scene with the Manticore was fun, but her venture with the mum was just unimpressive. Her mum becoming a warrior, when did this come into place? Did I miss something? The Centaur stepdad is a weird character. Why are these characters supposed to have arcs, or just one mention at the beginning? I'm making it sound like I hate this movie. I don't, it's actually pretty good, but let's just get onward with the list. Okay, I'll stop now, okay? Number 18. Obviously, it's not a hot take to say Inside Out is good, but I honestly think the movie has a lot of issues. Like, a very glaring flaw in the movie is just why they don't send the core memories back up to headquarters like the workers do with the memory of the commercial. It's extremely glaring, more than something like Buzz freezing in Toy Story, to me at least, and that one's given much more scrutiny. The movie takes a while to get going. I do like the setup and how Joy is a unique kind of protagonist. You can call her a villain for the for the start, and she for the most part is, but obviously she learns a lesson and becomes accepting of sadness later. It feels gradual too, like there's signs of her feeling appreciative when she comforts Bing Bong, and when sadness wakes up Riley. It's obvious sadness is much smarter, but Joy doesn't respect her, or any of the other emotions of course, but especially sadness. Her development over the movie is fantastic for that very reason. Sadness is also a very enjoyable character, and she acts as a great foil for Joy throughout the entire adventure. Bing Bong is also great. I love his enthusiasm, and the ending sacrifice was very emotional and well played. When the movie is not focusing on the journey with joy and sadness, it's okay. The stuff with anger, disgust, and fear was interesting, if a bit annoying, as anger randomly turns on the plan to run away, as well as how little time they actually spent there. They also have only one character trait anyway, and do emotions have emotions? It's not like they're always feeling that emotion. I don't fully get it. All in all, it has a few issues that hold it back, but I still think, despite its issues, Inside Out is a great movie that has primarily deserved the recognition it got. Number 17. Monsters University is a movie I really love, but I can see why people don't. It is certainly not a perfect movie. The plot is mostly good, but it's not everyone's cup of tea, and can definitely get clunky at times. Like, how does them breaking into monsters not go anywhere? It's not like they weren't seen. That was the biggest business in the world. People would 100% be looking for them. I also, like others, don't fully buy that Mike isn't scary and can never be. And while I do like the message of this movie in which someone might never achieve their goals, it doesn't make too much sense here. But boy, this movie is still super good and underrated. Mike and Sully growing with friends is so good to see, and them spending time with a team feels so earned and related. The team themselves, though, they're more of a mixed bag than I remember. Dom's great. I like his presence. I like how he acts as the leader of the group, and he feels like a wise old mentor, even though it's supposed to be Mike's job. Don, the older guy, makes sense. I also like Squiggles. He's also funny, and I like his underdog persona. But Terry and Terry feel like afterthoughts, and well, he can be quite annoying. Not as annoying as he could have been, but yeah, there are times when he grates. The ending scene was there at the human world. Sully blows up the door 2 is good too. Also, the Dean is pretty intimidating antagonist to overcome. I'm just interested. So yeah, overall, I really like this movie. It's just not Pixar's best. Number 16. So Inside Out 2 is the only movie I talked about on this channel before I started this marathon. I mean, that video isn't good. And in that video I said I was going to a vlog for every movie I saw, but since then I've watched movies like Deadpool and Wolverine and Why Robot. I haven't done a vlog on any of them because hasn't interested me, plus the Inside Out 2 video did terribly. Never mind. But the movie is, of course, a recent movie, which means there's not really that much of a consensus on where it goes. Like, most people think the movie is good, but is it great? Better than the original? These opinions aren't exactly set in stone yet. Honestly, so, I do think I said most of what I can about the movie's quality as a whole in the video. I guess all I need to talk about here is the placement on this list, and why I think it's better than the first one. Well, I still don't think it's amazing, or a giant improvement on the first one like some sequels, but it does do some stuff that stands out. I feel like it has less plot holes to stand on its own, exploring new themes with a sense of self and belief system. There's no real glaring plot hole in this one. There's also quite a bit of extra conflict with anxiety. Sure, there's no being wrong, and overall I would argue it's a little less grounded, but I would put it above the original in more ways than one. Again, I made a video about this movie, so if you can handle me awkwardly explaining things on camera for 7 minutes, go and watch it. But I'm just gonna move on to the next film. Number 15. The one that started all. Now, I do love this movie, don't get me wrong. But as a film, it certainly isn't perfect, like a lot of people say. First, it's great elements. Like the development of Woody and Buzz, with his character arc is especially great. We see him very confident in the Space Ranger role. Him not being self-aware is quite funny, but when he finds out, that moment hits hard. Woody is unlikable, yes. Too unlikable? Well, a little, but I don't think it takes away from the quality of the film that much. He definitely develops and becomes a better person as he becomes at peace with not being Andy's favourite toy anymore. The story has a clear structure which I really like. We go from Andy's room to Pizza Planet to Sid's room, and all these parts of the movie work. Also, we all know You've Got a Friend in Me, and Strange Things is a great song too, it has to be said. Woody is clearly a smart guy that plays off Buzz that respect. Now for the flaws. The animation has some iffy moments. Again, none really take away from the quality of the movie, but still. Also, the other toys, I like Rexia, but I feel like the others get way more development in 2 and 3. Potato Head is incredibly annoying, and is way more unlikable than Woody for basically the entire movie. Like, Sid isn't actually evil. It feels like Potato Head is just the villain and did all of this out of spite. Slinky and Ham do way more in the other movies to really even play into the feels. These flaws don't usually take away from the quality of the movie, obviously. They're notable anyway. All in all, this movie is still great, and I might deep dive into it more someday. Number 14. I was surprised by this, but despite what people have been telling me for years, Incredibles 2 is actually pretty good. Yeah, it is. So, yeah, I was pleasantly surprised. I've had people tell me how mixed it is and how bad a sequel it was, but I was pleasantly surprised, but I don't think it's like that at all. The movie is small, a very decent follow-up, and works to its advantage. I think the characters are 100% on point in this movie. I like the direction they took Helen in and made it a role reversal, so now Bob has to look after the kids. while Helen does hero work. And it really works, the juxtaposition between the two stories. I also like how different Violet wants to save the day. An unexpected twist which actually works to its advantage. Violet herself had a really good arc in this movie as she chooses to accept herself after a big change. I like how she goes from being super to hating it and then loving it. It feels very real. First movie felt full focus on Bob. This movie shifts focus mostly to Helen, who does the poor hero stuff and is the main catalyst most of the movie. But Bob has a very realized arc as well. It's not like he's sidelined, and even Dash and Violet never wants to save the day. Obviously, I'm not hitting on the first movie with this. I think it works for a sequel, though, to branch out and focus on the other characters, which it feels like this movie did. Enough about the characters, onto the story, because that's what everyone complains about with this movie. But honestly, I like it. It will be very easy for a sequel to just start with superheroes becoming legal again, and then skip a few years to a new plot despite how unrealistic that may be, but they don't do that. They make superheroes becoming legal again the entire plot. I don't mind the Underminer only being in the opening sequence, because I think this is what a sequel to The Incredibles should have been about. I know it might be a little clunky, but it works well enough. Okay, so I'm praising this movie a lot. So why is this not higher? Well, for one, this movie kind of wastes Senna. They could have picked anyone else to examine Jack, but they picked Enna, and it feels like they only picked her because of fan service and nothing else. This role doesn't really feel natural to her, plus the movie kind of runs a little too long. I don't know, it wasn't a big issue, but some parts were dragged out, and the movie felt way too long at times. And then there's the thing everyone complains about. Yeah, Evelyn kinda sucks. I don't have much to say, which has already been said. The twist is predictable, it's lame, her plan doesn't make any sense. Doesn't even need to be a twist. I don't really have much else to say on that. I just don't think that it takes away from the quality from the rest of the movie in general. Because despite these flaws, the movie is great and a near perfect sequel. I might want to do a full video on this because it is good actually. And people need to know that and check it out themselves and not wait years to watch it because of bad internet reviews. I honestly can't wait for Incredibles 3. I am really excited. Number 13. Why did they call this movie after a character that had like 10 lines for the entire thing? Yes, I know the whole point is getting back to her, but Hector isn't even the main character. Never mind, Coco is still a great movie. It has some bad points which we'll get to. Oh, the one I just mentioned was a joke. But it's undoubtedly a very good movie. The themes of this movie are very effective. It's clearly about family, getting back to them, and doing stuff with them. I can definitely relate. I love Miguel and Hector's rapport. The two are delightful as a duo. I like the scene at the talent show. I like how it builds up. Overall, the main story is delightful. It escalates in such a natural way, and it really helps. The ending of this movie is also superb. I don't understand anyone who doesn't cry at the end of this movie. What are you, psychopaths? So effective as you really feel for everyone in the scene, especially when it all works out. I remember the ending being a little contrived, like how anyone believed the hack to make the songs, but they clearly gave evidence. It made enough sense. The ending of this movie had lots of layers, which made it great. So what is actually wrong with this movie? Well, the opening isn't really that strong. I mean, it had to happen for conflict, but did they really have to make the family this mean-spirited? Why? I get what Miguel did was selfish, and overall it is his guitar to pass down as Hector clearly gave his blessing, but the beginning. Maybe it's just dampened because, this, and I don't know, but this isn't the only time I like a Pixar movie despite thinking its opening is kinda weak. Certainly the most contentious part of this movie is its villain, and yes, while he's not awful, he's certainly got issues. I like them building him up. His turn to evil doesn't come out of nowhere, as we don't actually know him for most of the movie. He's just a presence, we only really see him at the end. He's not like the 2010's Disney twist villains like Hans and Bellwether, but his actions are a bit flimsy. Why does he not tear up the picture? Like, that should be the most obvious solution in the world. His reveal is also way too similar to Wardenus from Monsters Inc., who is also a twist villain. But yeah, overall, great movie. Have quite a bit more to say about it, but maybe I'll make another video. Who knows? I mean, I slightly touched on it in my last video, but I discussed then that these movies actually are a lot similar. So I'll end this segment here, and I'll get to the next movie. Number 12. Luca was a particularly hard movie to rank. I mean, I liked it, but did I love it? I don't know. It's a very unique movie. It has a very simple story with relatively low stakes and not a lot going on, which is not what I usually like. I mean, isn't that what I criticize the movie at the bottom of the list for? But this movie has something that one doesn't. Likeable and interesting characters with a good rapport and a nice, well-developed bond. The three main characters are incredibly cute in the ways they play together and do things together. It applies a simple story about sea monsters wanting to go on land, and then they complete a triathlon so they can explore the world more. The movie is just about the three talking and getting to know each other before the triathlon. Luca and Alberto's friendship is well developed and well structured. I could see the bond very easily between the two, and I was saddened by all the fighting. Honestly, the third act breakup in this movie is one of Pixar's best, perfectly showing what that kind of thing looks like. It's a very feel-good, happy, cute movie. While it's not the smartest or most ambitious Pixar movie out there, it's very cute and nice. Very little to criticize this movie, although there are some. For one, the parents. Why are they in the movie? Seriously, they can just appear at the end when seeing Luca at the race, and then the movie will work exactly as it is. We don't need them showing up at random points in the movie. It's not funny and it's just really distracting. But overall, it's a feel-good time. Not that strong a story, but this movie is never boring. Anyway, let's get on with the list. Number 11. Okay, so just missing out of the top 10, we have, no one's gonna like this. Ratatouille is one of the most ridiculous premises I have ever heard, but it works. And not only that, it works as a serious film about introspection, creativity, and credit. It's not a comedy, although it's obviously not devoid of humor. It's there and it works. It's just not the focus when, if you describe the premise, that's what you'd think this movie to be. The two main characters are absolutely amazing. Remy's a great outcast as someone who clearly has more human qualities and abilities than the rats have. He's very practical and smart, having his natural talent never comes off as contrived in any way as to how they show it. As to how we show. The world as a whole makes it not believe how ridiculous it is. Linguini is great too. His awkwardness and rise to fame based on a lie is interesting to watch. How he interacts with Remy is pretty good. The movie feels like they're both in focus, as there's long stretches of time where Remy doesn't talk at all. But it works very well. Linguini and Colette's relationship is also very fun and well developed. Colette herself is a very fun character, as are most of the chefs. The movie's pacing is also absolutely phenomenal. It never feels like anything is too quick or slow. It's great. So why is this movie miss out on the top 10? Well, I'm sorry to say, I'm not the biggest fan of Skinner. To me, it's way too over the top and cartoony. And yes, I guess this movie is a cartoon, but every other part of it is serious and mature despite ridiculous premises. Skinner just doesn't work, as he's just crazy and unenjoyable. His reactions are so over the top, and his motivation, especially at the end, is pretty dumb. He definitely stays in the movie for too long as well. There's also the fact that I don't think the third act breakup is done great. Linguini screws up quite quickly and suddenly Remy starts to raid. I'm not sure how much it works. It just seems forced in there when it doesn't really need to be there. Well, except to have him get captured by Skinner, that doesn't have that much of a purpose either. It's not as forced as movies like Onward, but it's still quite forced. It does not, however, hinder the movie that much for me, as the climax is still fantastic. I like how everyone quits. It's obviously what would happen anyway. We know it. And it makes the climax very intense and suspenseful. Anton Ego is great, and overall, I like the ending where they open a new restaurant. It makes sense of the story and is a reasonable place it will go. This movie isn't one of my favorite Pixar movies, but I totally understand why so many people consider it one of theirs. Number 10. Turning Red is another one of the modern movies to be incredibly divisive, and thus I would probably be getting death threats for putting it above Ratatouille. But I don't care, this movie is amazing and underrated, just really good. It's a beautiful story of friendship, wonder, and family with a central character relationship at the front of it. Some people say the mom is a little over the top, but I don't really think that at all. Parents this overprotective exist, and she's clearly treated like she is. I also like the history in that Ming doesn't get on with her mother. It makes for a nice contrast. Overall, this movie does a lot of things well. May being herself and keeping the panda gift is a nice twist. I didn't actually see the movie taking, and it works because it's in character and is a nice development of the story. The friends are also very fun and have very distinct personalities. They aren't one note, and the friend group works very well into how May controls the panda. You really believe it, as May has such a troubled childhood. The ending is super effective, too, and classic Pixar. So why is this movie not even higher? Well, the feel of the movie is weird. The dad's talk with May at the end doesn't work fully, as the dad is barely in the movie up until this point. I overall see why this movie is divisive. It's definitely not for everyone, but I myself really love it a lot. Number 9. Bet you weren't expecting this so high up. Yes, I probably love this movie better than any person on earth. I think it's extremely underrated. Flick is a great protagonist. I love his passion. He's very likable in how he cares about the colony. And Prince Thatcher's a pretty good and underrated character too, I think. Her chemistry with Flick is pretty good. They both work off each other very well, and I think their relationship is very well developed throughout the movie. I also like Dot, and how she is the only one to believe in Flick for the entire movie. I like her mini arc of learning to fly as well. This character works. And Hopper, what can I even say? I mean, he's probably the most well-liked part of this movie, and with good reason. He's incredibly threatening and has pure evil, but also has insecurities and weaknesses, which is really good. He clearly does this because he likes suppression, which makes him undeniably evil. He is also fantastically voiced by Kevin Spacey, who, as a villain in real life himself, pulls it off beautifully. So, is there anything I dislike in this movie? Well, it may have a little too many characters. The circus bugs, for example. I like Slim, Francis, and Manny. And Heimlich even gets a laugh sometimes, but the rest could have been cut. You don't need that many, and most of the others aren't distinct. And Hopper's brother is also incredibly annoying whenever he's on screen. People like to rag on this movie for being a cliche lie-revealed story. And honestly, they're not wrong. The third act breakup doesn't exactly work because just because Flick lies to them, they decide to give up. Like, they've really came this far? Well, I think the rest of the movie can make up for one bad scene, especially as the climax itself is fantastic with the birds and Flick's great speech. And it all pays off, unlike Onward, where the third act breakup makes even less sense, and the climax is unimpressive. So, yeah, I don't think it's a perfect movie, but it's certainly really great and underrated. I am definitely one of the biggest fans of this movie, and will probably make an entire video on why I love it as much as I do. Number 8. Finding Nemo is a very underrated film. It kind of feels weird to say that, but I don't see many people considering it one of their favorite movies, even if it is obviously still very well liked. I've always loved this movie to the end. It's entertaining, emotional, romped. It's also funny with good humor everywhere. I particularly like the portion of the sharks and the turtles. Marlin is a great protagonist that works off of Dory well. I like seeing them going on an adventure with a lot of obstacles to make the movie extremely eventful. Always something new. Marlin's very likable and interesting. I like his protectiveness, and it obviously comes from a real place. Dory is pretty funny too. Again, I like their dynamic and where they go with it. I like how the news of Marlin spreads. I definitely like how it gets back to Nemo and ends up going there. The two plots work pretty well around each other. I like the contrast between Marlin in the ocean and Nemo in the tank. In both stories, it's interesting to see what happens next. I like how they cut to the tank every time Marlon and Dory think they're in deep danger to keep you invested. It's interesting to see how everything goes for sure. Marlon's character arc clearly makes him an enjoyable character to watch, and I'd argue it's one of the best character arcs in Pixar history. Going into so many places. All in all, great movie. We'll rewatch again and again and again. Number 7. Up is an underrated movie, or at least 86 minutes of it are. This movie has way more to offer than the first 10 minutes, and I plan to make a whole video discussing that soon. But in general, this is a funny, interesting, eventful adventure which keeps going to new places. The development of Carl and Russell's relationship works wonders, as Carl himself as a character is great. One of my favourite Pixar protagonists. His start as a grumpy old man turning into a very caring guy with a dog looking after a kid. It works! Doug and Kevin work too. They're funny and the movie gets really interesting later on. I actually think the ending might be just as, if not even more heartwarming than the beginning, when Carl realizes Ellie came at peace with not going to Paradise Falls, and clearly wants Carl to as well. It's a really interesting development which makes sense from what we see. About Charles Muntz. I know he's a divisive villain, and he's probably the weakest part of the movie, but I don't think he's bad. I think that it makes sense that a guy who's dedicated to so much of his life to capturing the bird is crazy enough to murder a child to get it, unlike a random head chef who, yes, has quite a bit to lose, but still, he shouldn't be this crazy. But it is still quite over the top, I guess. The sinister talking dogs could be a little too much, but other than that, I get it. Once again, I'm going to give more praise to this movie later, so I'll cut this here. This is just a great movie the entire way through. Number 6. The Incredibles is a fantastic movie. I know that isn't exactly a hot take, but I kind of have a weird history with this movie. I saw it when I was like 12 to 13 after avoiding it from my childhood, and I liked it, but didn't love it. Would have given it about a 7 out of 10 then. Why? Why did I consider it kind of overrated as a teenager? Well, simply put, it just wasn't for me. I only really became interested in the superhero genre a couple of years ago. Before that, I kept saying superheroes aren't really my thing every time I heard about them. And now, well, what's the entirety of the MCU and entirety of the Arrowverse, so I'm way more into the superhero genre now. I thought this would elevate my opinion of the movie, and did it? Absolutely. I now think it is a fantastic movie and hate that I didn't give it respect it deserves before. The main characters are great. Bob is a likeable yet deeply flawed protagonist. He's doing this obviously for the greater good, but you can see where Helen is coming from too. I love how the plot develops and the story gets very action-packed when it's deserved and earned. Bob's naivete but still intent to save people is so good and develops fantastically over the course of the film. All the characters are well developed, including Dash and Violet, who do feel more like a troublemaker son and typical teenager when you get around to it. And Syndrome, oh my god, what do I say that hasn't already been said? It is completely true that he's one of the best villains in an animated film ever. His intentions, his plans, his inventions make it very threatening. And I love how he's very connected to the main hero. With some evil charisma, but also got a bit of tragedy and leftover anger there is good too. Flawless villain. But is this movie flawless? In fact, why is it so low on the list? I mean, it's high. But some of you may ask, shouldn't it be higher? Well, yes. I don't think the opening is that strong. The scene where Bob throws his boss and the scene where him and Frozone are pretending to go bowling, they don't really interest me. Obviously they have purpose, but it's undeniable that after Mr. Incredible is called by Mirage, the movie is incredible. Now let's move on before someone goes and shoots me. Number 5. Boy, I was missing out on more than I thought. This movie is just fantastic. How great are the two main characters really? The movie starts off with a little annoying, with two of the main characters being horribly unlikable. But that's the point. They both go through great character arcs and their bond is 100% on point. I love their mental street and chemistry. Their rapport is just phenomenal. The message of this movie feels like what it's all about, telling people to live life and you're not defined by one thing. Both messages are great and this movie subverted my expectations a lot. I really love the world building of this movie. Everything just fits together perfectly. The ending, well, I've heard some people rag on it. I personally love it. Yeah, sure, beginning of one of this arrogant assholes. Just accept that he died, but then the rest of the movie show may never really his life. He needed this experience to truly figure out what life he wants to live. I think it's a beautiful ending. I'm not done yet talking about these movies' strengths. This movie's strengths. I like Moonwind and the Zone in general, how it all works, and it makes this movie feel big, especially where it's set. I like Terry. I think he's wacky, enjoyable, and a good antagonist. I also like all the Jerrys. Every character in this movie is delightful. The movie's also quite funny, with a lot of laughs thrown in there, along with the beautiful subject matter. Honestly, talking about something wrong with this movie would just be nitpicking, so I'm just gonna move on. Number 4. Oh my god, Toy Story 3 is even better than I remember. It has great character arcs, a great ending, a fantastic villain, and overall probably the best story in the series. I mean, 2 is the best movie overall, obviously it's higher than that, but I think 3 might just beat it in terms of its story and how intelligent it is. I like how time has passed and some toys aren't there. It's a good way to illustrate how it's affected them. Woody's character does well too. Being loved by a kid doesn't mean always being loved by the same kid. The ending is very tear-jerking. Lotso is a fucking hateable villain and is played magnificently well. The fact that he has so much power in Sunnyside makes him incredibly menacing. And the twist that he was evil, while a little predictable, gets revealed very early in the movie, like his second scene. So I don't think it was that meant to be as much of a great surprise as the terrible twist villain trilogy. Love those movies still. The henchmen are also good. And Bonnie's stories work too. We have ever in this movie where more when another movie that should have been focused when they were Bonnie stories, but whatever, I guess. What else? Oh, I like Barbie. She's just great. I was surprised. I haven't seen the Barbie movie, but in this one, I'm surprised how I can't remember this Barbie being so badass in the movie. I also like the development of Buzz and Jessie's relationship. I like Jessie in this movie in general. I like how she is 100% the most mistrusting of Woody when he tells them Andy put them in the attic because, well, the other toys don't need it. Jessie has been through it all before. Of course she doesn't believe him. I kind of wish they kind of explored it more, to be honest. I also like the Sunnyside Daycare setting. A lot more I could say about this movie, obviously. I'm going to save it for the franchise deep dive. Just 1 and 4, kind of overrated. 2 and 3, they get every chance they get. Speaking of, number 3. Boy, these top 4 were incredibly hard to rank. Toy Story 2 has always been my favourite Toy Story. I watched it a bunch as a kid. Way more than 1. And it still holds up so damn much today. But saying it's the best Toy Story isn't that much of a hard take today. I mean, a few days ago it would have been blasphemy, as 3 was clearly the fan favourite. But now, 2 and 3... are gonna duck it out until the end of time for which one's the best Toy Story movie. And honestly, that makes sense. I just think this one has the best character arcs, best setting and contrasts, and by far the best use of the side characters. I love them all here, and this element is a big improvement from 1. The movie is also super funny and has so many other elements which make it great. The Buzz-Zurg connection is really good for 1. I'm glad that was never spoiled in another movie. The new characters are the absolute best. The When She Loved Me sequence was so emotional and moving and made it very believable Woody would choose to stay after that. The Prospector is also a really good character and twist villain. I think I was shocked as a kid, but boy, it was so long ago that I can't really remember. Well, 2-year-old me was probably surprised, I guess. It lines up with all the way with his motivation of wanting to go to Japan and nothing before in the movie went against that motivation. Plus, his motive makes a lot of sense and is implied throughout the movie. It makes total sense him never getting sold will make him desperate in the wake of things. There are many other good things as well. The traffic code scene never fails to get a laugh out of me. Too much to gush about in this movie. We'll obviously talk about it more when we get to FTD in about 2 years. But for now, I'll see it later. Number 2. What is there even to say about Monsters Inc? This movie slaps hard, of course. The plot progresses very quickly as Mike and Sully protect the boo, and the dynamic between each other is nice. The slapstick, the differences in views, it's all played very well. Unlike other movies, the third act breakup was built up to throughout the entire thing, so you get it. Boo is adorable, as is her relationship with Sully. It's very cute and works well enough. I love the world building too. The lie of toxicity as humans is something honestly not given too much scrutiny at the beginning, but is clearly proven to not be true later. Randall's conspiracy is a good way to lean into the movie, and he functions fantastically as both a classic rival and a devious villain. It's really done well. And Waternoose? Yeah, obviously he's the best twist villain there is in an animated film. Not only is it foreshadowed extensively so it doesn't come out of nowhere, it's also unpredictable because we've already got a pretty great villain in Randall. So you wouldn't expect another one here, but he is, and I enjoy that. It makes sense of the story, and it doesn't feel like we're jamming another villain in. It's obviously also a very funny movie. The comedic timing is on point, so many funny gags. Mike is a particularly funny character. A lot of moments bring the laughs, as well as quite a few running gags. The climax is pretty good too. I like them searching through all the doors. It's a nice way to fill it out. I also like the opening with the scare trials and the commercials. I also like Mike and Celia, as it carries some weight and adds some extra conflict without taking away from the story. All in all, a near perfect movie. But still, I like just a teensy tiny little bit more. Number 1. I knew WALL-E would be first. And while it didn't win by as much of a landslide than I thought, I don't think I can rank it any lower. This movie is just perfect in almost every way, and it can't stress that enough. WALL-E and Eve are both characters who are likable and interesting, and they're just robots, but they have so much more. They have so much chemistry in so many ways make me feel good. Every moment with them I love. Some people say the second half is not as strong as the first half. Honestly, I disagree. I think they work as two parts of a whole. The common sentiment is this movie just becomes average when WALL-E gets to the axiom. No. Sure on Earth, it's heartfelt, relaxed, and we're learning. It does a good job building up what happened to the world with very little dialogue, and for the most part live action videos conveying it all. And the first scenes of WALL-E and Eve bonding really work too. The second half though, it's very action packed, with it going back and forth trying to get the plans. It's an interesting picture for sure. The Captain of Axiom is a fun character too, and I like his quickly developed enthusiasm for Earth. Underrated character. And Otto? Yes, Otto. I like him. I'm not joking. A lot of people say this movie is about robots with their own feelings, thoughts, personality. Otto is none of that. He's just a mindless machine following his programming. That's the point. He is clearly supposed to be a contrast to WALL-E and Eve, in that he's a mindless machine, which is what makes him so threatening, disregarding, and interesting. He's less of a villain and more of an antagonist, and he is very underrated. This movie, though, for the most part, it's got the respect it deserves. I think it was very hard not to rank it here. Maybe I can poke some holes in the time, but in general, it definitely works. And they got away with making this under the Disney umbrella? I mean, how? Wouldn't happen today. So, that was it. That's my Pixar ranking. What did you think? I think I had some pretty big hot takes in this video. If you don't, I do have some pretty big opinions on these movies, which I will expand upon. And this video took a very long time to make. Getting everything in place, writing and all that. It was And it was fun. It was fun watching all these movies, gathering up all my thoughts on them, including a lot of them which I haven't actually seen. So, yeah, I hope you enjoyed this video. Please leave a like if you did, and subscribe to the channel, obviously. But if you disliked it, please leave a dislike and a hate comment, because we love to keep the algorithm happy. Also, follow me on social media. I'm linking my main account downstairs because, well, I'm not going to be using that much anyway. But I'll see you in my next video, whatever that may be. I'll upload more soon, I promise.